the easier it is to be good, the harder it is to be great.
Today's legendary guest is Derin McMains, aka D-Mac. For the last 14 years, he has worked as a mental performance coach, consults with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and is the director of mental performance at ReliaQuest, a global cybersecurity company. He's built mental performance programs for the San Francisco Giants, the Seattle Mariners, and every varsity team at Notre Dame, which means he does the same job for a hitter facing 98-mile-an-hour fastballs and for the executive walking into board meetings where the quarter didn't go so well. He explains why that's the same job. If you happen to find value in this conversation, please share it with a friend. And now, on to the show with your host, Seth Pepper. This is Unlimit Your Potential.
Welcome back to Unlimit Your Potential. I'm your host, Seth Pepper. Excited about today. We got someone that's cut from the same cloth, I would say. We got Derin McMains, and D-Mac is your nickname that they know around the clubhouse and otherwise. So you are a mental performance coach, and you're working a lot in both corporate and then also in the athletic. You're connected, consulting with the Diamondbacks major league team, and you work with a number of other professional athletes, it sounds like. So it should be a really interesting conversation. For me, it's been performance is performance, whether it is in a corporate environment, business, arts, and sports. So if you would you go back a little bit and kind of give us a bit of your origin story?
Sure.
Sure. Were you an athlete? Were you interested in this area? Did it come out of a necessity to figure something out?
Yeah, it's a great place to start. So I was a professional athlete. I played professional baseball for 7 years. I was hurt for 5 of those years, so I had 5 season-ending injuries in those. And I can just tell you, the plan was not to become a mental performance coach. In fact, now this is 2001 to 2008 when I was playing in the Giants organization. And there was hints and rumors of sports psychology. You kind of heard it, but that's where you go when you're jacked up. At least that's how I viewed it. So I was like, I will refuse to see that person. And look, when I was going through the injuries, probably the first 3 or 4 wasn't that big a deal, but the last 2, I could really feel my mindset change, and my performance followed that. But I do want to back up a little bit before that, because I think what really pushed me overall, now that I reflect, now that I've been doing this work for roughly 14 years now, mental performance specifically, is, when I was younger, I did the 1st and 2nd grade in the same year. And so I was moved up halfway through. I don't know why. I remember sitting with a counselor. And again, I'm just a 1st grader, so I really don't recall why I was going. Now that I'm older, I learned they were trying to decide if I should be in a higher grade. And so, but I remember going in there and they were doing the ink blot test. You remember that ink blot test? Yeah. And I just thought, even as a 1st grader, I thought, this is the silliest thing I think I've ever seen in my life. What does this lady want me to talk about? Mm-hmm. And so I just started making up these random things. I'm like, I see a squirrel, and that squirrel is right on this branch, and it's grabbing an acorn. She's like, you see that? I'm like, I do. I'm like, anyway, so I say all that, and that right away, achievement was really important to me. Mm-hmm. Really important to me. And so, again, and when you're an athlete as a young kid, you're just going through it, and it's cool when people clap for you, not cool when you stink, and but I was chasing that applause a lot, right? But the one thing, Seth, I didn't realize was when I got into mental performance work, I got into it from a place of strength. I really did. I would have never called it my mental game. Now we have words around it, and now we can articulate some of the stuff that we're experiencing. But a lot of colleagues of mine and other people I've chatted with, sometimes they get into the mental game because of this is, I struggled with this, and I don't want others to struggle the way I struggled. And I looked at it I really didn't struggle till the very end, and the struggle was really around identity, because getting hurt, and then I've always attached my identity to what I did as a baseball player, and then all of a sudden when you're not playing baseball because you're hurt, then who are you? What do you hang your hat on, right? And so that's what I got really interested in, is the identity piece of performance, is where I got really excited. Like confidence was never a thing. I was, irrationally confident, like just thought I could do it for no other reason than my grandma told me she loved me and my mom and dad supported me. So if that's good, I'm good, And so I had this irrational confidence, and I was always a goal setter. Like that was something I remember. I would shoot 50 free throws a night when I was in the 5th, 6th, and 7th grade for 3 straight years. I did this, and I thought it was a normal practice. And I had a piece of paper written on a wall right under my light switch. And then I get to be older and I realize that's not a normal practice, right? So I was just a very achievement-oriented person. Now I would say I'm more achievement-driven person, right? I still love going after things and doing things. I just don't hang my identity on it.
Okay. So what made the transition so your career obviously came to an end.
Yeah.
How did you deal with the identity shift? It's tough for everyone, I would assume.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think fortunately, unfortunately, depends how you want to look at it. I think it was unfortunately in the moment, fortunately now, right?
Yeah.
But I had to confront that earlier during the rehab process, right?
Okay.
So the last one that got me was kind of this double surgery where I had a labrum repair and a wrist surgery. They did them at the same time just for efficiency, I guess. I was like already knocked out. So the shoulder surgeon comes in, he does the first part, and then the wrist guy comes in and does the second part. And I was a mess, man. And that one was the one that really sent me down the path where I'm like, I don't think I'm going to play in the major leagues, And that was a hard time to go through. I mean, there's depression, there's, I never was suicidal, but there would be these random thoughts that pop in that really scared me of like, what the heck was that? Like, where did that come from? And that was scary to me. Fortunately, I was asked to coach just because of some of the relationships I built, the way I operated, they thought I could help and be a coach. So I got to coach for 5 years in professional baseball before I became a full-time mental performance coach. And so it was that space where I was coaching in the minor leagues, I was managing in the minor leagues. So the reason why I bring that up, though, from an identity standpoint, was I got to this place as a player where I would say, oh, this is just what I do, it's not who I am. And it sounded good.
Yeah.
But then when you go into coaching, right, now you're coaching.
Yeah.
And man, I hated it that first year or two. Like depression started to come back in a little bit, because it's like I'd have to stand on the field, but like stand on the sideline and just couldn't play. And I'd watch all the guys do what I wanted to do. I'd watch the crowd cheer for the guys that would make the good plays, and nobody cheers for the third base coach. They're not like, that was a great send over there, D-Mac. They're like, oh, but when you send them and they get thrown out, I would hear about that, right? And so, and it was fine, right? But because I think those are such good moments when you're like shedding what is so inauthentic, what is so unreal that we've been told to believe, and what we've just accepted as true, because just the world that we grow up in, specifically in the United States of America, that really celebrates athletes and celebrates sports and celebrates people that make a lot of money, right? And so it's like you just start saying, well, if that's what's celebrated, that must mean that is what makes me valuable and important. And then so it's not until you get in these humbling experiences, at least my experiences, where it was nightly, where I had to like stand on a sideline and watch these guys do what I love to do, but I couldn't do anymore physically, and realize like, man, I used to say it's what I do, it's not who I am, but that is not true, and I really got to work through this. So it was, I tell guys, and this is a lot of the work that I do now with athletes, and I spend more time probably with older athletes that are going through this identity foreclosure, identity crisis, whatever you want to call it. But it took like 2.5 years of like really every day wrestling with this. This is not like a one-time conversation of like, hey, Seth, thanks, I got it. Now I am no longer identified by that. It's like a 2.5 year journey. And look, it's like even the work I'm doing in the corporate space, like I thought I was good. And then when I went into the corporate space, it was hard to not be the sport guy anymore, not be just the mental performance coach for athletes. And people would go, and I remember early on, like, oh, so you work in business now? Oh, you're a corporate guy. And it's like, well, I still work in sports. And I would find myself saying that right away. And I thought like, oh, shoot, I haven't quite gotten rid of this thing yet. And so, and again, I don't know if it's something we can just put in a box, right? And that's okay. I don't beat myself up over it, but it is something I'm aware of, because it is something that can be limiting.
Yeah. Something you said just a minute ago of, I've always been curious of this. Great players don't usually make great coaches. So what, the humility aspect that you talked about.
Yeah.
There's a lot to that to be effective with another human being in some sort of coaching or mentoring sort of capacity.
Sure.
How does that play in? How do you handle it now?
Well, fortunately, I didn't suffer from great players don't make great coaches because I wasn't a great player. You know what I mean? So, fortunately, I guess it depends who you compare yourself to, right? But you know what? Like, I just love people, man. I love it when people have an uncommon dream and an uncommon work ethic. I love it when people sit in a space where others don't understand them because they're like, why do you sacrifice so much for that thing? Why does that matter so much to you? And I just love it when people are willing to step outside of that space where friends and family question, why are you so passionate about that thing? And I want to step in that space with them and help them try to figure it out and accomplish it, right? And so when I went into coaching and I got over the fact that I couldn't play anymore, when I got past that, I don't know how to do it without humility and curiosity. Now, I meet coaches that obviously don't have either of those things, and generally it doesn't go well for them. But I don't know how you can truly be in a business where you're loving the individual that you're working with, and you're all in with them to try to help them do this amazingly hard thing and not stay humble and curious the whole time. Like, I just don't know how anybody does. Like, it's just, it's so together, and so I guess never in my life have I said, hey, you got to be humble here. Hey, you got to be curious here. It's just, I'm with you, man. Like, me and you, we're trying to figure this thing out. And so we can't live in a space where we got all the answers and we know we got to be curious and go find them. So like, let's just search and explore together,
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. So as you start to work in probably the athletic field first, right? And you start to focus more on the mental side of things, how did you sort of discover it, or what, because it's something that, as much as it's come a long ways, it has a long ways to go. Sometimes people will make the timeline comparison to nutrition and say, okay, nutrition now versus, for me, my nutrition of gaining weight back in the day, decades ago, was I'm going to go eat, huge Snicker bars in the middle of the night.
Sure.
It's very different.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I've seen some athletes still take that approach, but I don't think the nutritionist would approve.
But in the mental space, it's always a sort of almost enigma, or it's its own thing. So how did you step into it? How are you kind of operating in it to make it a real thing, if that sounds right? Trying to make an intangible tangible.
Well, I think I'm still trying to figure that out. I think I've definitely got better at it. But I think how to make intangible things tangible, I think that's where frameworks kind of come in, right? Because frameworks help us make complex things very simple. And it was when I first started getting in the mental performance space. I mean, you go through school, you get your master's, and they just give you fancy words for things you already know, especially if you're a former athlete. They're like, what is this self-efficacy word? Oh, confidence, got it. Okay, got it. Like, we don't have to, we don't have to make it sound smarter than we really are. So, but anyway, so I got these fancy words, and then you go out and you're trying to coach guys, and I'll just tell you, early on, I had to work really hard. Probably the hardest I had to work was to make sure I didn't project my experience on somebody else's.
Yeah.
And still to this day, that's something I always have to really work hard at. And I think there is benefit to being a former professional athlete and a former professional coach. But just like anything, undisciplined strengths become weaknesses, right? And so if I lean too much into well, I know how you feel. I've been there. Like, I've already lost them. Like, just shut up. Nobody wants to hear that, you know? And so it's like, get curious, ask questions, all those things. And so I just have to work a little bit harder at that because I don't want to, it can inform me in the back of my head, but it can't guide me or assume things when I'm working with an individual. So that can't happen. But when I talk about frameworks, once I got into the work, and it was probably like, maybe 5 or 6 years when I was working with a lot of athletes doing it every day with the Giants, when I started to realize, like, okay, if we want better behaviors, and I'll just deconstruct it for you, like if we want better behaviors, we want better actions, we want better performance here, well, how did they get to that? And so first thing I started to realize is like, well, I do a lot of emotional management strategies with guys, I do a lot of deep breaths and how important that is, right? And so I thought, like, well, it's our emotions that influence our actions. You know, heart rate gets going, and so it's like, hey, let's take a deep breath, slow the heart rate down. You slow the heart rate down, your thoughts slow down, and you can think more clearly. So it's like, okay, emotional management, so it's emotions that influence actions. And it's like, where do those emotions come from? Well, generally thoughts, right? So it's like, so I'm hanging on some sort of thought, and I'm thinking like, oh shoot, this is the biggest moment of my life. Now my heart rate goes up. So it's like, okay, well now we got to work on some cognitive reframing techniques, right? So now I'm thinking, okay, thought management strategies, emotional management strategies, then gets better performance. So how we think impacts how we feel, and how we feel, you know, influences how we perform. So that's how I started to think about it. But then I'm like, man, we got to work upstream of that, because it can't just be always in my head all the time of like trying to stop thoughts and do all this thought management stuff. And then that's when you get into perspective, right? And you start meeting a bunch of different players and you're coaching all these different guys. And you thought, man, there's 25 guys on the field, there's 25 guys on this major league team, but they also see this game 25 different ways. Right? There's 25 different perspectives, and those perspectives determine thoughts determine emotions, and emotions influence action. So now I'm working in like reframing techniques, right? So there's perspective. And then when you get in this field a long enough time and you get to know guys and you really build trust with athletes and individuals, then you realize, well, where did that perspective come from, right? And then that gets to identity.
Yeah. So
how I see myself determines how I see the world, determines how I see this game, determines how I see this practice, determines how I see this podcast sitting here with you guys, right? And it's like, so my identity determines my perspective, perspective determines thoughts, thoughts determine emotions, emotions influence actions. And so when I think about identity, perspective, thoughts, emotions, actions, that's like the framework for which I work in, and that has helped make this intangible thing a little bit more tangible, because now I can take athletes on a journey, and you know, early on, again, and we're going to work backwards. Like, let's work some emotional management strategies, because identity, that's big work, right? Identity is big, deep, messy work, and sometimes I don't want that. Cool. Hey, I need something tonight because it's 7 p.m. We're facing a really tough guy.
Yeah.
We're not having an identity conversation. Let's just get a deep breath before I step in the box and have one single thought. Okay, cool. Let's do that. And then as we build this relationship. So anyway, I say all that, and that's how I've been able to do it. And then from that framework, then it goes into building out programs, right? So it's built, you know, and I've been fortunate enough to build out programs with the San Francisco Giants, Seattle Mariners, University of Notre Dame, and then also at ReliaQuest, which is a global cybersecurity company headquartered in Tampa. And so in building it out, whether it's professional sports organization, collegiate sports programs, you know, across all 26 teams there at the University of Notre Dame, or at a global cybersecurity company where our teammates in Salt Lake, Las Vegas, Tampa, Dublin, London, and Pune, India, they all can find some sort of value. It has to start with the framework and then kind of build out from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
deep
that's a lot. That's a lot, man. Yeah, sorry. I get excited about this. I get fired up. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's good. So what are some of the things that are tangible that you found that cross-reference, whether it's in a business situation or it's a sports situation or just life? And, you know, I like to say that, you know, an opportunity is always going to have pressure. Yeah. So what are some of the tangibles for all of the different people in the audience that can relate to, you know, that you know, kind of draw them in on this? Because we like to eventually get to tools, like really simple tools.
Yeah,
so
for sure. So let me start with this. What is performance? Like, because we can't develop what we can't define. So we need to define performance. And so whether it's business, whether it's sport, whether it's the art, I define performance in executing a task or duty to a standard in the face of resistance, right? So there's kind of three buckets. There's executing a task or duty to a standard in the face of resistance. And so when you think about performance in that term, do you know what the task is? Do you know what the standard is, right? If there's no standard, there's no level of like, this is excellent or this is world class, whatever it is, then it's like, if there's no standard, then is it really performance? Like turning on a light switch is executing a task, but there's no standard to it, you know? But then the last piece is in the face of resistance. Now, resistance can be one of two places. It can be external or internal, right? We know this. Internal meaning our own thoughts, our own physiology, like these types of things that can keep us from performing at the potential that we think we can. And then external could just be the guy I'm swimming against, or the pitcher, or the person guarding me, right? So there's external, and then also if you're in a professional sports organization, there's a lot of other things, contracts, all the interracial, organizational dynamics that goes into that, but there are internal and external pieces of resistance. So I say that, and why that's so important is when you think about managing resistance to improve your performance, to hit the standard, all resistance is mindset. It's mindset, right? Whether it's external or internal, like that guy trying to get me out though, it is mindset because I got to be self-aware. I got to be aware of what that person's strengths and weaknesses are, and I got to be situationally aware. Well, that's mindset, right? And so it's like, do you have a simple way to prepare and plan for that? And so anyway, I say all that, and that to me is performance. And so helping people recognize what's the resistance. Now we start getting into tangible tools. When you tell me, well, I'll tell you what, when I get in the box, I just got thoughts going a million miles a minute, you know? And it's like, well, what are you thinking about? Well, I'll just give you a recent example. I won't use his name, but really good player. He's going to be a Hall of Famer for sure, and got off to a slow start this season in Major League Baseball. It's okay, no problem. Well, what's going on? Well, I'm trying to think, shoot, I go into every game. Do I still have it? All these guys are throwing upper 90s now. Oh my gosh, you know. Could this be it for me? Do I need to change my swing? Does the way that I've always operated still work? Like, he's thinking all these things, and which is normal, natural, like welcome to being human, you know? And then when you have a conversation with the guy, you start to realize like, oh, you know what works? If I just think, explode. Okay, well, when you were going really well, is that what you're thinking? Yeah. Well, let's just start there. Let's just let me give you one thought. Right, and one thought when you get in there, and let's just build a routine around that so that can come up. And if you need to write it on your bat to remember, right? I tell people this all the time. We need to be reminded more than we need to be instructed, right? A lot of us know what to do, but we get in the moment when our emotions are going everywhere, and I just forget, and I'm like, why'd you do that? I don't know, I forgot. Well, what in the world? You know, like don't forget. So just write it on your bat, write it on a piece of tape, whatever it is, just try to get to that one thought, because it's easier to go from one thought to no thought than 10 thoughts to no thought, right? Like I want to get you to no thought. I want to get you to where you just show up and let your body do what you've trained it to do. But I also know you're a human. And so I know there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. So since we can't really, get to no thought by just saying, I need to get to no thought, you know, because now that's a thought, right? And that gets really messy. But let's just get one helpful thought. And generally that helpful thought comes from somewhere in your past where you've had good performance. Let's figure out what that singular thought is, then let's build a routine around that. And look, you don't have to commit to it forever, but let's commit to it today. And let's commit to it to this at bat or to this point or whatever it is, right? In whatever sport. So I think that's like, for me, one tangible thing that as a performer, and look, this works in business too, right? If you're going in to present to the board, right? People freak out. They're like, oh shoot, I only see these people once a quarter and our quarter wasn't great. And all of a sudden, guess what? Same thing. We need to be reminded more than we need to be instructed, right? My heart rate's going a little bit. I know these people are judging me. I know these people are upset with the way I performed. I know I have to articulate something and that, hey, I need to own this, that we didn't do very well. And at the same time, though, I need to project some sort of confidence that the plan going forward can work and we can execute on this. And guess what? That's a lot of pressure. Heart rate starts going, thoughts speed up, you forget to say what you meant to say, all this stuff. And so what do we do? Then an emotional management strategy where, again, I don't want to overcomplicate it for people, but generally if we can get to like a one thought and a deep breath, that's going to give you the best chance to compete in that moment where there's high pressure. Again, whether you're in a board meeting, on a battlefield, or on a ball field, really doesn't matter.
Okay, so I have two directions to go in this, so I want to make sure that we go in both.
Yeah.
The first would be do you have people, let's just keep it in the major leagues,
Okay.
like the highest level of performance.
Yep.
The reason why I like to keep sports, because most people, if not everyone, can relate to sports, just because sports has a measurement,
Yep.
There's a story as a beginning and a middle and an end. And in everyday life for most people, there's a lot of gray. So
Yeah.
sports give us this great example and metaphor. So at the highest level, where the differences are the least amount, right? Are there people in that formula that you were talking about that don't know the task, that don't know the standard, that don't,
Yeah.
or do they all have that down by then?
Great question. I think, well, let me back up to what it means to compete, right? So it kind of goes back to this idea, you can't develop what you can't define. And I promise this is going somewhere. So
Go with it.
go with it. So,
I'm in the flow with you.
Yeah, we're good. So when I think, what does it mean to compete? It means to be fully committed to a plan to help our team win the game based on my strengths and weaknesses, the opponent's tendencies, and the situation of the game, okay? So the reason why I bring that up is because I think it's so important for coaches to know what it means to compete, because when I've been in so many clubhouses, as you can imagine, where it's like, we just got to compete better. We just got to compete. I need you to compete. And then they just walk off and you're like, what the heck does that mean, right? And so we just, and this is years ago, I just did an exercise with a bunch of coaches and it's like, let's define this thing. And so that's what we came up with. And so now I can say, hey, you didn't compete tonight because you weren't committed. I saw hesitation. Or you didn't compete tonight because your plan wasn't very good, right? You didn't compete tonight because you didn't understand the situation of the game. You didn't compete tonight because you weren't playing according to your strengths and your weaknesses. Like for a baseball example, it'd be maybe a leadoff hitter doesn't hit home runs and he gets a 2-0 count and he comes out of his shoes and tries to launch a homer and pops up to the shortstop. Like, you're not competing because you're trying to do something that you can't do. Like, what are you doing, Or you didn't compete very well because you weren't paying attention to the opponent's tendencies. And the reason why I say tendencies specifically is because that forces you to be in the moment watching the game in real time. You can't just get the analytic report and you go in there and go, oh, he throws 38% breaking balls. Sure, the last 10 starts, the last 5 starts, but if I'm going out there today and I see that this guy is really tasting his curveball, feeling good about it, I promise you he will throw it more than 38% of the time, right? And so it's not just what you read before the game. Tendencies means, what are you doing today? How am I paying attention to your body language and what you're operating with today, right? So anyway, I say all that, and that's what it means to compete. So when you ask, like, do the best players in the world, do they know how to compete on a nightly basis? No. They don't. Because of those 5 things I just mentioned.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't have a great plan. Why? Because they've been so gifted and better than everyone else their whole life that they just show up, roll out of bed, and they're better than everyone else. And all of us, and so they don't pay attention to the nuances of the game, and then they get their stuff pushed in when they walk out there and they're not totally ready. So that's 1. 2, sometimes they're just not fully committed, right? They got too many things going on in their head where they're like, hey, and I remember Tiger Woods said this great thing years ago when he came back and he had been out for one of his injuries, and he talked about, well, I thought about using my driver, and then I thought I had a 3-wood, or I could just use my iron, and then I thought, you know what, just go ahead and blast it, and then he ends up hitting it out of bounds. And the person asked him, was like, well, is that just rust? He goes, no, lack of commitment. I didn't pick my club and just fully commit to it, right? And so in his heyday, there was no one better than Tiger Woods. And so guess what? He always didn't know, quote unquote, what to do. He knew what to do, but he didn't do it in the moment, right? Because he's human. And then again, there's the other 3 buckets where you talk about your own strengths and weaknesses. That's self-awareness. Know who you are as a competitor. That's going to inform you how to perform. There's opponents' tendencies. Maybe you're not watching the game because you're so caught up in your swing as a hitter, right? We see in the major leagues all the time. You have a bad at bat and you go back and you just look at the iPad and all you're doing is watching your swing over and over and over. And you're like, what you just missed? You just missed 14 pitches that guy threw that maybe could have given you some insight into how you should approach your next bat. Whoops, now we missed that, but that's okay. You got coaches, we can ask, but you should probably pay attention. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then the last piece is just situational awareness. And this is just baseball IQ, any sport IQ. You just need time to play to understand, like, oh, this player likes to do this manager likes to do this, or whatever it might be. And so when I operate from that definition, I would say the best players in the world don't know how to compete consistently on a nightly basis. Because it is, like I said, a nightly thing, and that you are always developing, you're always learning, you're learning about yourself, you're learning about the guy across the field. Sometimes you're tired, sometimes you don't care. It's especially in 162 games in 185 days, whatever it is, it's like, I'm just gonna hopefully roll out of bed and hope it works today, and then all of a sudden 42,000 people show up and you're like, that was a bad idea, like I gotta get a plan real quick, So all those things happen, but that's how I would answer that. I know people might push back on that, but that when I define what it means to compete, that's why I say that.
Which is interesting, because if you go back to your formula, resistance, right?
Yeah.
If you have early resistance, then it will keep you more curious, most likely, because you'll have this pattern of humility of, I'm trying to figure this out, because you had to figure it out because you struggled to get here in the first place.
Yeah.
So you're going to compete probably on a more consistent level, and that's probably something that's, and that would be my next question, would be, you've been around great people. You talked just recently with this Hall of Fame player. Do you notice a difference? I mean, I talk sometimes in just generalities of like, is it like a radio frequency? Are they different on the field than the other players? Maybe it's more practical, and it's, they focus on the details more often. They're really good about their routine, stuff like that. Maybe they study a lot. Maybe they don't do any of that. What do you notice with the greats that you've been around?
I think the easier it is to be good, the harder it is to be great. And so the greatest ones I've been around have had to struggle somewhere along the way, and they fought through it because they loved it. They fought through it because they didn't wear it as like, I'm not good enough. They wore this struggle as like, I gotta find a way through it. And so, so I think it is the little bit more study. I would say like this irrational belief, like this state of optimism of like, and not toxic positivity at all. I'm talking like I believe that everything's gonna work out. How? I don't know. I have no idea at this point, but I believe that as we get through this, I'll be better on it on the other side. Like they just have this thing, and then I would also say the greats have the ability to just commit to this thing in this moment. They're not concerned with what it looks like 2 days from now, even 1 day from now, or even 4 at-bats from now. But I believe I'm going to fully commit to this thing and give this thing my best shot, because I know, divided heart, divided mind, you're toast, right? And so I think they have this thing of like, they are willing to lose with plan A. They're just willing to lose with plan A, I'm gonna go all in and go for it, and if I lose, that's okay. Like, I'm not afraid of it, right? And so I think that brings up kind of second point is, I think those that are good, that can't get over that hump of being great, it's that fear of losing, fear of not measuring up, fear of not being good enough. That fear of like, well, what if this doesn't work? What if this doesn't work? It's like, look, man, it's like, I love winning. I hate losing, but I ain't afraid of it.
Yeah.
Like, I love having success. I hate failing, but I ain't afraid of failing. All right, go to the next thing. And I think that's why I love professional baseball, because I think it beat failure out of me. You do it so much, you don't even don't care. Give me the next at bat, give me the next pitch, give me the next ball, hit me the next one. Let's go, So I think that's how the best operate in that. It's like, love winning, hate losing, not afraid of it. Happens, so what? Give me the next one,
Okay. So let's take what you just said and move into tools, because a big part of human performance, we're going to stay in sports, but this relates to everyone.
No doubt.
When you hold on to a discomfort of pain, you can't fully commit to the next thing.
Yeah.
So you just experience some sort of imperfection. It could be a fail, or it could just be the ball didn't go exactly where you wanted it to go. What are some of the reset tools where you can help people to just purge themselves, or whatever, that flush themselves of what just happened, to be able to move forward, next play speed, or whatever you want to call it, resetting?
Yeah.
So you work a lot with baseball. baseball has one of the highest, if not the highest, failure rate as far as, like batters. That's always the example. You can
Sure.
probably do it justice to say, getting into the Hall of Fame, what's the failure rate of a hitter?
Yeah, I mean, I know we normally say like fail 7 out of 10 times, but I think we forget about on base percentage and walks. So we'll say you can fail 6 out of 10 times and still get in the Hall of Fame, right? On base percentage is gonna be around 400. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're
Okay.
succeeding 40% of the time, best in the world at what you do.
Okay. So how do those guys seem to move forward better,
Yeah.
right? And keep that optimism? Because that's usually my question in the past, was to ask on the teams at the highest level, who's a good hitter, who's going to be possibly a Hall of Famer or a slugger, what's the difference between them? And it's usually the optimism. It's usually a reset that they're able to do and have full commitment of optimism.
Yeah. Dusty Baker told me this a long time ago when I was in the minor leagues. He was managing the San Francisco Giants, and he came down and spent a few days with us, which first, let me just say, tells you what type of person Dusty Baker is, that a major league manager would go down to the minor leagues once his season's over and coach all these minor league guys in instructional league, right? So, stud human, stud baseball guy. But one thing he said that I think probably summed it up in the best way, he said hitting is eliminating pitches. Hitting is eliminating pitches, meaning at my first at bat, if I get a fastball down the middle or fastball middle in and I smoke it to right field for a hit, or maybe I get out because I line out, what I just did was I eliminated that pitch because that guy over there saw that I hit that pretty well. And so you know what I did? I'm not going to get that pitch anymore unless it's a mistake. So now, guess what it did? It gave me a new approach for my next at bat. I can go look fastball away, or I can maybe look something off speed, right? And guess what? If your next at bat, you go up and look fastball away and you smoke a fastball away to left field for a base hit, now you're 2 for 2 with a fastball inside right field, fastball outside the left field. You just eliminated heaters all the way around. So now you can go up there and you can look for a breaking ball. You can go in there and look for a changeup, right? And so hitting was eliminating pitches. And so, but the reason why I say that is because ultimately what he's saying is it's problem solving. And to me, sport is just like, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Business is the same way. The best entrepreneurs, the best leaders get down to the very simple question of what problem are you trying to solve? And the reason why I think it's so important, because problem I'm trying to solve is present moment and future focused. The problem I'm not trying to solve is how do I let go of the last out that I made? Like there's nothing I can do about it. Nothing. Like I can piss and moan about it, Seth, all I want, but it's not going to change the fact that I got out. But if I think about what problem am I solving for, okay, how did he get me out? Well, fastball's middle in. Cool. I know exactly what I'm going to be looking for next time because he just buried me on that. And so I'm going to cheat a little bit into that, you know? And then guess what? If he's smart enough to know that maybe I'm going to make that adjustment and then he's going to adjust ahead, cool. That's what I love about sport. Like, let's go. Now we're in a chess match and now we're trying to solve problems against each other, right? And so anyway, I say that and that's more of a, when I think about tools, and it kind of goes back to that identity, perspective, thoughts, emotions, actions. Like I can give you tools for emotional management strategies to reset. Here's a routine, step out of the circle, deep breath, pick up some dirt, squeeze anger into it, throw it away. I have some tennis guys that do that. You know, they'll grab the towel, they'll squeeze their anger from the last point into the towel, throw the towel away, and as they throw that towel away, they threw the last point away. Like we can do, that is a tangible, emotional management strategy I can give to you that will trigger a thought because I connected something physical with it. And we can do that. But I know the best work that can be done is around perspective and identity, because then when I have this healthy perspective of just like, hey, sports is problem solving, like I don't have to like go think about like, how am I going to squeeze the anger into the dirt and throw it away? I'm like, no, there's a new problem to be solved. There's a new problem to be solved. And this guy has shown you that he's going to get you out this way, or maybe you're a pitcher. This guy has shown you that he's cheating this fastball because he keeps pulling all the fastballs foul. Now maybe I can throw something off speed or whatever it is. But if I can stay in like problem solving mode, that like problem solving mode is present moment focused. Because I'm focused on the problem I'm trying to solve. And the problem I'm trying to solve is right in front of me.
Yeah.
And it's this point, or it's this pitch, or it's this play, it's this pass, it's this block I got to make in the NFL, right? Or it's this defensive system, it's the position I need to be in the MLS, or whatever it is, right? And so if you can stay like in that space, man, you can do some magical stuff, you know?
Yeah, like right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this is one of the big ones. So the flow, the zone, the moment, being present, right? That's our optimal state.
Yeah.
Right? We all want to get there, feel the bliss, as Joseph Campbell would have said.
Yeah.
Getting there, got to go through the blisters, got to go through this discomfort to get there, which is kind of the ironic twist to it all. But you mentioned earlier, get it down to one thought so you can get to zero thoughts.
Yeah.
That's it, right? That's the promised land. So let's talk a little bit into that and see where that goes as far as helping someone. I mean, it's amazing to get to one thought.
Yeah.
Then what? And you could talk on this in this space.
Yeah.
I think this is the area where it's something beyond us, right?
Yeah.
So if it's a person that wasn't raised or isn't a faith-based person, it could be team first versus individual.
Sure.
But if it is someone from faith, it could be let go and let God.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we talk about all that because I think that's necessary to get from the one thought to the zero thought or whatever.
Yeah. No thought. Yeah.
Yeah. No thought.
Yeah. So if we can get to one thought, first let me say this. When I generally work with athletes, and I would say I'm trying to think if we've ever had like a mechanical thought. I don't think we have. It's been very minimal if we have, because I don't want you to think internally when the target's externally, right? Mm-hmm. So it's generally more motivational or more, as I mentioned earlier, like explode or commit or trust, or even as you said, let go and let God, right? And so there's these things that we can get to that, again, I don't love it when it's internal. Now, if you're trying to learn a new technique or whatever, then maybe there should be like get my foot down or punch first, right? NFL offensive lineman or whatever it might be. Like there might be those types of things. But what I do know is like, if we can get to one thought, then I think we can just get out of the way. Like, because what's next is, I don't know. But I know that in the spirit of competition, in the spirit of just getting out of your head and letting your body do what you've trained it to do, that's when the flow tends to show up, right? And so, but I do want to touch on a little bit, you mentioned faith a little bit, and I do think this is so important. Just when it comes to like work ethic and putting in the work, you talk about earning blisters, and what I do know is that individuals that have put in the work tend to find flow state more frequently because there's less doubt, because hard work eliminates doubt. And generally when I get into competition, doubt shows up. Am I good enough? Did I do enough? I don't know, but I know if you did enough, doubt goes away. So then being present and entering a flow state shows up more often, right? And so, but with that being said, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, because I used to say when someone would go, hey, what's the secret? Like, what's the secret? And I would say, there's no secret, man. Work really hard, blah, blah, right? I'd say that. But now I think that there might be a secret. And if we have this conversation again in a year, it could be, I might have something different. Yeah. So I don't know, but I want to get your thoughts. I think the secret to success around the people that I've been around, and now I've been fortunate enough to be in the business world and in the sport world. And the one consistent thing that I've seen show up time and time again from extremely successful people is initiative. I think the secret to success is initiative, meaning I don't need somebody to tell me to go do something. I just go do it. But with initiative, here's what happens. If you want initiative, you have to have a clear goal. Now look, it can be rooted in purpose. I love that, but that's a deep thing. But just give me a clear goal. Because if you have a clear goal, there's a good chance you're gonna have initiative. But how do I get a clear goal? Well, then I gotta know what I like. I gotta know what's important to me. I gotta know what I'm running after. So now we're talking self-awareness, right? Well, then I gotta know myself so I can have a clear goal, so I can have initiative. And then we can stop there. But for me, like as a man of faith, I would say the last piece is like, well, how do you know yourself if you don't know the one who created you? Because the creator gets to define his creation always, right? Everything I've ever made in my life, I get to call it what I want to call it. I get to say what it does. I get to say, hey, this is what I made. And so anyway, I say that, and like, if you want to be someone of initiative, if you want to be someone that has like purposeful impact, that it's like you look at them and their hair's on fire and you're like, oh my gosh, look at that guy go. Like or look at her, man, she's amazing. Like you don't have to tell her anything. I promise you talk to them, they have a clear goal. I promise you they know who they are. And there's a really good chance that they are defined by the one that created them. And that's the beauty for me of again, my faith, Christianity is around this idea is like, you're loved and accepted no matter what you do, and you can't earn it, right? It's a gift of grace. And so it's like, and that's why I talked about earlier, I've shifted from being achievement oriented to achievement driven. I want to do things, man. I want to do cool stuff. I want to impact this world. I want to do that, but I'm not defined by it. Why? Because I'm already loved and accepted, And so that just removes the tension and the judgment and the ego that goes into it, because I know who created me. I know what he says about me, and because I know what he says about me, that helps me in my self-awareness. And because I have a higher level of self-awareness, I know what I want, which creates initiative, right? And when I'm operating in the space of initiative and not worrying about judgment, I find flow.
Yeah.
Right? And I can carry out that purpose and that impact on a baseball field, on a tennis court, on a football field, whether there's 50,000 people or there's 2 people watching. It doesn't matter. Why? Because I'm operating in a space that I believe I was created to operate in. That was deep, sorry, man. But like that's how I see it, you know what I mean? That's how I feel about it. And look, and not every person I work with wants to get to that conversation. And that's okay, I respect that, I love that, and they're not there yet. Because there was times when somebody would say that to me, I'd have been like, get the heck out of here, weirdo. You know what I mean? I'm like, what's going on? Yeah. But I've done this long enough and I've seen it in enough people that when you get to this space of just like, let go, and as you said, let go and let God, I love that, but you can just let go and just go, man. It's like, oh man, it's beautiful, Yeah.
Yeah, you bring up, a couple of things that are really, foundational. One is the motivation, the drive, the passion, whether it's something like Michael Jordan taking everything personal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he found ways to just ignite himself, even if he's making it up. He lived in this sort of imaginative space that would motivate him.
Yeah.
What do you find to be like something that people can touch on to get that understanding of what actually motivates them? Now, this is kind of a two-parter a little bit. Just watching Coach Carter, that classic basketball movie, and at the end, one of his players thanks the coach for saving his life, but he starts with that famous, now famous poem. It's the darkness. It's not the darkness that we fear, our inadequacies. I'm going to struggle on that word. Inadequacies.
Got it.
That we fear. It's our light, right? So that's that transition. Fear is a big part of the human condition.
Yeah.
And so a major part of the journey is going to be fear of failure. So if we're climbing this mountain.
Yeah.
And then maybe this even comes back to like, what you were dealing with injuries. If you want to touch on that. But what's interesting is when you get close to achieving, like you're really, within arm's reach of the summit, it's scary. There's a lot of fear involved in that. And it's the same coin, it just flips to the other side. Fear of success, like, oh my gosh, I could actually realize my childhood dreams.
Yeah.
Don't screw it up.
Right.
So it's that light. So it's that transition. And I think the poem is really interesting because I think it touches people in a deep way that even for me, like I'm still exploring that. Why does that mean so much? I'm more fearful of the light than I am the dark. The dark, yeah, but the light. And then you realize like, oh, I can do anything kind of thing. The basis of this podcast is unlimit your potential.
Yeah.
So that's the light.
Yeah.
So you get close to the light and then you get fearful and then your mind starts to get protective, right?
So I think there's 2 things at play, at least for me, and this is fun to think about. But I think one thing at play is, I'm this close to the summit. So I made it to AAA, did not play in the big leagues in the regular season. And so I failed at my 20-year goal. I failed at it. I chased it for 20 years, probably longer, like if you go back to T-ball, but like from 20, from roughly 8 to 28, I had one goal in mind, it was to play in the major leagues, and I failed at it. Didn't do it. And that sucked for a while, right? I mentioned earlier, a couple years. But then I know the person that I am now. I know what I've learned, and I wouldn't change it. I really wouldn't, and people say like, oh, yes, I'm like, no, I wouldn't, because I don't know the relationship I have with my wife. I don't know the relationship I have with my kids. I don't know where I would be. I know I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now, Seth, you know? And so it's like, and I'm loving this, you know, this is a lot of fun. And so, yeah, you know, and it's like, so I say that and that since I failed at the biggest goal of my life, I don't fear anything else. I really don't, because I failed it and I survived it. And I'm doing all right, you know, and now, it doesn't mean there aren't times where I regret, right? There aren't times where I'm like, man, I wish I wouldn't have dove for that ball in that moment. I wouldn't have broke my wrist. You know, it's like, you know, I mean, of course there are like moments of regret, but that doesn't mean like my life is bad. I think it's just part of being human, right? So I would first say that it's like, one, there's a fear of failure, but the cool thing, and a weird way to say it, but like the cool thing about failing at your epic moonshot goal is that you realize it's not fatal. So you don't have to fear other things in your life. Now, the other thing that I think is interesting, that I think there's a subconscious fear that happens for people that are afraid of quote unquote the light or afraid of that success, is I think there's a subconscious fear that if I get this thing, it is not going to be what I thought it was. And the reason why I say that is because I was fortunate enough to be a part of 3 world championships with the Giants. And we won 3 World Series. And every kid that ever plays baseball, it's like, that's what you want to do. And again, I was on the player development staff. I was coaching at that time. But I remember we won it, and it was like, it was cool for like a day and a half. And then that was it. And I was like, well, crap. Now what? And so, and you've heard Tom Brady talk about this, right? I think after a 2nd or 3rd Super Bowl, he said, that's it. You know, and so, and I think Jim Carrey even said, I wish everyone could make as much money as they can, and then they realize it's not as cool, or, you know, or it's not as meaningful, or whatever it is. And, you know, again, that's something I'd like to test out. But no, I'm just saying, but point being is I do think there's this subconscious fear that if I get it, and it's not as fulfilling, and it's not as meaningful as I thought, there will be disappointment there, and I'm going to have to really, really go deep and go, what is my life about? Right? Versus this, if I miss it, now I have a story to tell. Man, if I woulda, if I would have stayed healthy, Seth, I could have, right? It's like, then I'd have that story, versus I made it and I chased this 20-year goal, and golly, it was worse for my family. It was actually worse for me. It was actually, and I never saw I was gone all, you know, or whatever it is. And so I just think it's a really interesting thing to explore. And so what I would challenge people and share with them is like that thing. Like, everybody should have that thing. Kind of goes back to initiative. Like, everybody needs a mountain to climb every day. It can be big or small, whatever, but there should be something that calls you to take steps and calls you to push through hard. Everybody should have that. But you're not defined by it. And it doesn't make you right. It doesn't make you better. It doesn't make you anything other than like, good for you, man. Go get the next one, you know? And like, and again, it's like, you know, fortunately, you know, you probably see the gray in my beard now. And so it's like, these are things I've just learned along the way. You know, I think all of us, right? We're sitting here. It's like, I think it's things we've learned that I really want people to get sooner. Because I think about this, behavior change comes from one of 2 places. You learn enough you want to, or you hurt enough you have to. And unfortunately for a lot of us humans, we hurt enough we have to change, and we hurt enough we get to that mountaintop and we realize, well, that sucked, and then we go into depression. You think about Olympic athletes that suffer from depression, right? Or you fail at that big, hairy, audacious goal, and then you're like, man, you know, you go into depression, or, you know, or whatever it is, or you really beat yourself up over it, you know, versus just like, hey man, run at it. Do your best. You're not defined by it, you know, but I want people to learn that sooner so they don't have to experience the hurt and the emptiness on the other side, and really get to unpack like their own beliefs, their own core values, their own self-image, all those things that make up your identity. Really do some work there, because then you can go chase that big goal with a free heart and a free mind. Doesn't mean it's gonna be easy, doesn't mean you're not gonna get in your head every now and then, doesn't mean you're gonna get beat up, like, it doesn't mean any of that. But it means, man, you're going to enjoy it. Like, the only thing better than winning a world championship, Seth, is winning a world championship and enjoying it. You know what I mean? Because like, when you win something and it was miserable, it's like, what'd you gain? You can't even tell the story unless you got to lie to people. Oh, that was the best moment of my life. Like, really? Because I knew you then. You hated it, you know? And so, but it's like, but you can't enjoy it unless you have a free mind and a free heart. And so that means you got to do the work, right? And so I would just encourage people to do the work on their way up the mountain before they get to the mountaintop.
Keep that balance.
That's it.
Get there,
That's it.
I don't know if you've heard of Quincy Avery. He's kind kind of like a quarterback coach behind all these big names. African-American quarterbacks was the first, but he coaches all different. There's a documentary on him on Hulu right now. But anyways, I reached out to him and was persistent, and we finally had a conversation. And my wife, when she was like, "Oh, you're going to actually talk to him, what are you going to ask him?" You know, and it's when Philip Rivers, 44 years old, I think, grandfather, and he started for an NFL team.
Yeah.
And so that was the question. Not that I was a fan of anyone, I was just like, why? How is this happening? And you're a quarterback expert. And he gave me this really great answer. He said, in this generation now, and I'm going to add a few of my things in there too. When we have a phone, right, or a device, we can create the environment. We can have a sense of control. When you're on Instagram or you're on LinkedIn or you know whatever the platform is, you have control, a sense of control. I'm only going to post the things that I want to share, kind of thing, or others are doing the same. So it gives you a false sense of control. So in performance, what he said is the reason why Philip Rivers can come in and there's kids that can run circles around him is because he will get in this situation, because he says you have about 3 seconds to make a very messy decision. And you have to go through 3 or 4 options simultaneously. And he says kids these days, and I'm adding that part of control, they don't want 70,000 people to see them make a mistake. Whereas Philip Rivers doesn't care. So how would you add to what your experience is of this generation, because each generation is taking their sport forward.
Yeah.
So we're developing skills at an earlier age. We're running faster, jumping higher, able to throw the ball more accurate, all these sort of skills. But the part that is the component to performance is the messiness. And if you don't have a sense of being able to just be in that messiness and make a decision, even if it's the wrong one, it's not just sports, that's life.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to perform.
Right.
So I don't want to sound like I answered the question, but where would that go with you as far as like navigating this space?
That's so interesting, and I love that you brought this up because it makes me think about, and I never thought about this before until you brought it up, but the Instagram, and you talk about having a sense of control, and I can control what I post. So I'm growing up with this view of the world, this perspective. We talked about perspective, thoughts, emotions, actions earlier. I'm growing up with this view of the world that I can control the narrative. And when you get in professional sports, you no longer can control the narrative because you are on the field, 70,000 people are watching you. They are going to judge, criticize, praise, whatever it is, every decision you make. And so your worldview, when I say, kids that are growing up today where they have this worldview that they can always control the narrative, is going to get blown to smithereens. And there's going to need to be people there that can support them through that. Just like I think 2 generations ago when nobody cared about where you were from and there was no narrative to control other than you're just going to school and there's no internet and there's no phone and you just do whatever. And then now you have to learn how to manage fame as you get to the professional sporting world where you're like, oh, now I have to manage all these people coming at me and all this other stuff. And that would derail a lot of people. So they had to learn that skill. And like in anything, to me, that's the value of a coach. Like that's the value of having someone come alongside you to help you process this new perspective or challenging yourself to find your identity or find thought management strategies or find emotional management strategies. Like that's the value of having someone come alongside you that can help you navigate that space. Because if you if you grow up and I can control the narrative, or I would even say it's funny, I got a son and a daughter and we were laughing about this the other day because they wanted to vote on American Idol or something, and I'm like, golly, their whole life, they think people care about their opinion, and it's like, and that's not a bad thing, because they get a vote for everything. Hey, let's vote. They should be winning. They should be whatever. But it's like, when you get in a professional environment, you know what? There's a few years there where nobody cares what you do. Your opinion really doesn't matter. We need you to show up and do your job. And then you can earn the right to share your opinion that we might consider to do the thing later. And so, but again, that's a worldview that like from the time you're 6, your earliest memories, that you're like, oh, I'm going to vote on who stays on this television show. Like, that's power, man. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't know about you, but I was the kid in the family. I was the youngest, I have an older brother, but I had to go change the channel, right? There was no remote control. Like that was my role. That was the only influence I had on a television set, was I turned the knob. And now I can text and vote someone off the show, which is wild if you really think about it. But anyway, I'm kind of going on a tangent, but I think it kind of leads to that point of like perspective, right? And also on the other side of that is my identity is like, oh, my opinion matters. Like I have a belief now that my opinion matters. And guess what? Like if you just get drafted by a sports organization or you're in a professional sporting environment where there's already 51 other NFL players and you just think you're going to go in there and tell them how it's going to work, that's probably not going to go very well for you, right? And so they're just, and again, not their fault. Please let me say this, not their fault. It's just the world they're growing up in. And so us as leaders, us as coaches, us as adults that have hopefully enough emotional intelligence to say, don't criticize them for it. Let's coach them through it. Let's coach them through it, understanding that their life is different, and that's okay. It doesn't make them bad, just different. And we just need to coach because like, hey, this is a new world that you got to operate in that's definitely different than the one you grew up in.
Excellent. Definitely a new horizon.
Yeah, right? But it's wild if you really think about it.
You deal with that exposure.
Yeah.
And working with professional athletes at the highest level, that's part of our conversation is how are you handling the noise? Because you can't reject it because that's the sponsor.
Yeah.
So you have to operate in it, but it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to deal with it differently. And so, you think about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, he did Hall of Fame speech. He talks about all the things that motivated him taking things personal. Well, one of the things that he took personal was that he wasn't on the cover of Sports Illustrated after North Carolina won. Only 4 of the 5 players were on there, and he felt like he should be on the cover because Dean Smith, his coach, said he didn't feel it was right for a freshman to have that exposure. And I'm thinking we're giving that exposure to like 6-year-olds.
Yes.
Now.
Yes.
This is a different world.
Yeah.
So how do you handle the exposure? Is that going to make you freeze in front of 70,000 people, even though you can run faster and throw the ball better than anyone there?
Man, that's a good question. I think we're going to see this in NIL money too, right? Because college student athletes, well, I don't know if they're student much anymore, but we'll call them that. College student athletes right now, excuse me, they are making more money in college, a lot of them, than they will as a professional. Yeah. Not just financially, but because they're also getting their housing paid for and they're getting every meal paid for. Well, when you become a professional, if you're not a first round pick, you're probably making less. So now imagine this, like your peak earning years are 18 to 22. That's a hard thing to deal with. I think you peaked at that age, right? So I think there's going to be some, I don't know what it looks like yet, to be honest with you, because we're kind of in this new phase, but there is going to be some real challenges that will arise for some individuals when they peak at that age financially, and then they get into professional sports and it is actually a step down. Like, I got to pay rent. I got to pay for a house. I got to pay for my car. Yeah. Welcome to adulting, So there's going to be a challenge there for sure. Again, not criticizing, just we're going to have to coach them through it. But as you brought up at 6, I mean, I think I saw this the other day. I think they're given like grades to little leaguers now. Like they go to these showcases and they're like grading them on their performance, like, giving them grades that we'd give to high school kids and college guys going into the NFL draft and Major League Baseball draft. And it's like, man, you talk about creating a world of comparison. Yeah. And we know, I think it was, who was it? Teddy Roosevelt or somebody, comparison's a thief of joy, right? And it's like, holy cow, we're creating a world that's going to rob them of joy. That scares me to death.
To circle back to going from one thought to no thought, the flow, the zone, the moment, being present, that's a state that has no comparison. So you're not going to get to your optimal state if you're thinking about your next post online.
No doubt. No, I mean that, like all those things that we're talking about are all things that just really don't matter. You know, I mean, we think they matter, you know, but let me say this. There's a difference between what's helpful and what matters, right? Results absolutely matter. 100% matter. Like, we work with athletes to help them get great results, right? But the process and how we see ourselves and our perspective and our thoughts and our emotions, like, that's what's helpful.
Yeah.
And so we just can't let what matters distract us from what's helpful.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's where joy is found. That's where our best performances are found, are over here in what's helpful. And so I think it's on us as coaches to be able to shift their focus from those things that matter, that absolutely matter, that the world says matters, that, hey, stars next to your name, you're rated this, here's the paycheck, here's the tournament. Yes, they matter, I'm with you. But it's focusing on what matters. Really, is that what's gonna get it for you? No, like, let's focus on what's helpful, and it's our job to kind of redirect people back to focusing on what's helpful. And ultimately, that's where joy is found too. That's where freedom's found, and all those things. And these are things that we know, and we get to help lead people there.
So we're kind of at the part of the show where, based on my name, Pep Talk, right? So it could be based on your experience of like reaching out into the audience and wanting to, help people. It could be anything, literally, but what would be something that you would want people to know
Oh, wow. What would I want people to know? Man, that's such a good question. I just think, man, there's just so much potential in each and every person. And for them to realize that and experience that is between them and them, you know? And that doesn't mean you have to do it by yourself, though, because we all have blind spots, right? And so I would just encourage people, like, whatever they want, whatever they're going for, to, like, it's inside them. It's not somewhere out there, or if that person would do that, or if they would do it. It's not they, it's you. And do the work, get with the right people that you love and trust, that can speak some truth into your life, that can help you with your blind spots. And man, because it's like, I think, and it's probably why I coach, right? And I think it's probably why you coach. Because when you talk to people and they reveal some things that you're like, oh wow, you're limiting yourself, And I get that, because I limit myself too, right? I'm like, we're not, and it makes me almost the biggest hypocrite, right? Because we know this stuff and we still do it. But to be able to sit with someone and really walk them through that, to realize, like, man, everything I need to be successful and have a great life and have a free heart and a free mind is really in here. It's not out there. And so how can I work on this in here? That's what I would encourage people to do, that hard work.
Awesome. So great. Well, I was warned that this was going to be really powerful, and it's lived up to the warning. So I appreciate your time and your energy and sharing with us. Is there anything that you would like to share? I know you've had me on your show.
Yeah.
And so would you like to mention the show? Anything else that you'd like to put out there?
Sure, yeah. Like, I would just say, like, in the corporate work that I'm doing, we started a podcast called No Show Dogs that you came on. It was awesome. And so that's where we first met. And the fun thing about the No Show Dogs podcast is that we take people like yourself, like world-class coaches, world-class leaders, world-class athletes that have been in the sports arena. And as you mentioned earlier, sports is a great metaphor because there's film, I can watch it, I can see teamwork in real time, I can see hustle, I can see effort, I can see bad attitude, I can see it all in real time, and you can't hide from it. And there's a scoreboard, so it's black and white, winner and loser, right? And so I can see it all. And so what we did was just, we thought, like, hey, let's start a podcast where we can bring some of these top people like yourself in to talk about your mindset and your strategies and tactics and things that you use and how you see performance, and then try to connect it to the business space for corporate leaders, because in that world, there are unbelievable performers as well. And it's great to get lessons from from the world of sports. And so, just in my 26 years in sports, met a lot of cool people, I've done a lot of cool stuff. And so it's like, how can we bring those people on and just share those stories and share those tactics? And so, yeah, the No Show Dogs podcast, and we have a YouTube channel now, which is just, it's at No Show Dogs. And so, if you don't have time for the 45-minute conversation, here's a 1-minute clip on YouTube, of an answer that I thought would be helpful. So yeah, I would encourage people to go check that out.
Okay, that's awesome. And then as far as people reaching out to you, is that something that you
I love
want
it.
people
Yeah,
to reach
absolutely.
out to?
I always forget about that kind of stuff, but thank you. Yeah, I mean, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, probably check Instagram more now that my son's 18, because I'm following him. I'm like, what are you up to? But anyway, my Instagram, DMac_mindset. So DMac_mindset. Yeah, they can find me, connect with me. I love it. I just love people, I love people, and I love watching people enjoy their one trip around the sun,
Yeah. Well, you walk into the room, because we did our show remote, so meeting you for the first time, you light up the room, so
Oh, thanks,
you're
man.
definitely bringing it. So thanks, D-Mac.
Oh,
Appreciate you.
gosh, Seth, thank you, man. This was awesome. I loved it. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Now you know why DMAC is a legend. Every episode of Unlimit Your Potential can be found at unlimitpodcast.com. A full archive, show notes, and links from every conversation we've had. If this one brought you value, follow the show wherever you're listening and send this episode to a friend who needs to hear it. It's how this show reaches the people it's built for. See you next week for another value-packed conversation. And remember, this is how to unlimit your potential.